Yo, how's it going, everybody? It's MacklinGaming, and earlier this year I made a video on Final Fantasy VII, the original. I played it for the first time this year in 2024, and I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to keep it going and make this like a series because I did not grow up playing the Final Fantasy games, and I really never played them. The only ones I played are 16, like the newest ones. So I'm thinking about making this a little bit of like a series on my channel, playing through the old classic Final Fantasy games, at least all the ones that I hear are like the best ones. And, after that, maybe I'll get to the others because I know there's literally more than 16, because there was like 10-2 and 13-2 and all that. So that brings me to the second classic Final Fantasy game that I've played here this year, and that is Final Fantasy X. Yes, I know. You won't believe this because I just decided at the beginning of June to start up a new Final Fantasy game. I was like, I don't know which one to play. I hear 10 is good. Let's try 10. And then it turns out the whole game is based on water, and it's tropical, and it's summery. So to be playing it all summer so far has been really an awesome combination there. I honestly did not know the setting of Final Fantasy X going into this, so that was a really nice surprise. I think that's why I'm enjoying it even more so. But anyways, let's get into the physical copy of this. I'm a big collector of retro games and stuff, so I love to have the CIB copy with the manual and everything. We've got the characters here, Yuna and Titus. I don't know who you are if you call him Titus, because it's Titus, like tide, water tide. This whole game is based on oceans and water and stuff. So super cool artwork. Yuna's crying dramatically, and Titus is either laughing or crying in happiness. You've got all the instructions with little screenshots. There's Riku. All right, here we go. Here's the gang right here. Titus, Yuna, Waka. So there's just a bunch of cool characters in this game. I thought coming off of Final Fantasy VII, how much I loved, Cloud and Barret and Tifa and Aerith and everyone. I was like, oh man, are all the other Final Fantasy games this good with the characters and the groups and the party members and the relationships and stuff? And so far in 10, I would say yes. I love Titus. I think he is a really funny, naive, positive, bubbly kind of protagonist, which is a huge contrast to Cloud. He's a little more similar to Zack. I should say a lot more similar to Zack. But Titus is a cool guy, man, because he's got that vibe. He's got the look of the late 90s, early 2000s, American Pie dude. I love he's got a hookah shell necklace, I think, or something like that. And the blonde hair, it's less spiky than Cloud's. It's a little bit longer. But this definitely brings me back and reminds me of 1999, 2000. That's when this game was in development and officially released, I think, in 2001. It's just got that vibe, and that's why I think I'm really liking it. So this is the first Final Fantasy game that came out with 3D animations in the landscapes, in the background, so to speak. If you watch and look closely at the PS1 versions of Final Fantasy 7 and 9, it's 3D polygons walking around on a 2D JPEG background, a picture, just a static image background. So Final Fantasy X is the first one, because it came out on the PS2. It's the first Final Fantasy game to feature all 3D modeling and especially in the backgrounds, in the environments, I should say. So I think because of that, they kind of went away with a overworld, a hub world in this Final Fantasy. It's a very linear Final Fantasy game. It feels very much on rails. I guess you can go backwards a bit. You can only really go forwards and backwards throughout this linear path that you follow around the tropical islands here of Spira. It doesn't really bother me. I know the game wasn't open world. I don't expect it to be. So for me, this is totally fine. It's really about the story and the characters. So playing through it linearly is actually kind of a good choice, I think, for this game. Another thing that came with the 3D animations and the technology of the PlayStation 2 was the facial animations. So in this game, it's the first Final Fantasy where each character's face has like proper 3D animations, like they look surprised or angry and they furrow their brow and things like that. So you can tell this game, they really approached it like they wanted to put an emphasis on the facial animations. So in a lot of the cutscenes, they show really close-ups of Yuna or Titus. Because of this, the facial animation feature at the time was probably amazing. But now playing it, it looks a little crusty and stiff. You know, it's like when they do close-ups of Titus and his face is like angry and like they're trying to capture the emotion. In 2024, you know, on the PS2, it just kind of looks a little stiff, but it doesn't, you know, suck by any means. It doesn't take away from the game for me. I know what they're going for, and at the time, like I said, it was probably absolutely stunning to see the graphics. So I played this on the original PS2. Like I showed you, I got the PS2 copy, and I have like a CRT, and on my original PS2 console that I had as a kid. So that's how I've been playing this. That's why the footage is going to be a little crusty looking. It's actually not my footage. It's from World of Long Play's channel, but it's the same type of playthrough. They did it on a PS2 original, so that's why it looks a little bit aged and the resolution is crap, but hey, it's authentic. That's the way I've been playing it, and I really enjoy playing games that way, like classic games. I enjoy playing them on their authentic hardware and stuff, and like a TV from that era. I don't know why, it's just nostalgic for me, I think. So another cool thing that goes along with the setting of this game, like the tropical island setting, is this brand new sport that they made up for the game. And it's a sport called Blitzball. And Titus, the main character, plays Blitzball, and he's like a superstar. And then things happen to him, and I won't spoil what happens really with the story initially, but he ends up in a place where like nobody really knows him anymore, so he's not a superstar. But the sport itself is really interesting. It's like water polo and soccer, but completely submerged under the water. So I think it's pretty cool. I love soccer and I love water. No, I'm just kidding. I'd rather play in a pool than be in the ocean, man. I ain't going underwater in the ocean. You see what's in there? It's nuts. But that's the best way I could describe Blitzball, is like water polo under the water, and you can kick it too, like soccer. So that's kind of the vibe of Titus, and he meets this new character that becomes a good friend of his called Waka, who also plays Blitzball, and so he becomes like the ranged attacker in your party. He's got like a little blitz ball, like literally this ball looks like a soccer ball, and he just chucks it at enemies and it does damage to them. I was like, that's super unique for a ranged attacker. You know, he doesn't have like a bow and arrow or anything like that. It's just straight up blitz ball, baby. And Titus has a big old sword, and you can like, you know, of course, get new swords and new weapons and upgrade your gear as you go along. There's also Yuna, who's the other main character. Yuna's like a summoner and a healer. So she's very important to the main story. The whole story is kind of like about her anyway. And everyone else is kind of there to like shepherd her through her journey and like protect her. They're called guardians. So that's like what your party is, like Waka, Titus, Lulu, who's like a offensive mage. Then you've got this really cool older guy called Auron with a huge katana. And yeah, I love all these characters. Oh, and there's Kamari, who's like a Ranso, which looks like a lion humanoid. He's badass because he's the character that gets the ability to learn enemy attacks. So when I found out it was like just dedicated to Kamari's one ability, I was like, that's pretty cool. You know, got to use him a lot for that. And the same thing goes for Yuna. She's the only character who can summon like any of the Aeons, as they call them in this game. You know, they're called like icons in 16, but in this game, Aeons. So like Ifrit looks cool in this game. He's got like necklaces and earrings, but he's like still a demon. And man, the summoning animations are incredible. Like for the time, again, it's a little outdated now, but when you look back on the PS2 and you're Yuna and you press summon Ifrit, and then like his animation pops up, it's insane. And he catches her on his shoulder and they like slowly fall to the ground. It's like Yuna and him. It's crazy. It's such a cool animation, and they're all like that. So back then that was the jam, I bet. The really fun part about the combat in this game is the interswitching between characters like mid-battle. So you've got 3 party members out to battle at a time. If it's your turn to fight, you can switch to a different character that's not out in the battle, and you can still attack with them. So you didn't like use up a turn. Like I'm used to Pokemon. You switch out your Pokemon for another, that's your turn. But in this game, you can just switch your party member out and still attack. And that makes it so fun. Like for turn-based combat, they were already thinking ahead in 2000, 2001. You know, Squaresoft at the time, they were called Squaresoft. So they were already like trying to find cool, like fluid ways to make the combat more fun. And so I think that swapping of party members is just awesome. And I think they really nailed it and made the combat a lot more fun. So just like I experienced with Final Fantasy VII, when you come up against the major bosses of the game in Final Fantasy X as well, they're really difficult. Like you can be cruising through, fighting wild battles. Maybe you flee some wild battles and you don't want to fight. And then you get to the boss and you're under leveled and then they just kick your ass. So it's like you really want to grind and you want to fight most of the wild battles that you come across, because if not, you're just going to get worked by the next boss. But another way to make your party a little bit stronger is the sphere grid. I love the sphere grid. It came up in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I was very happy to see it here in Final Fantasy X. I imagine this is the first time Squaresoft used this upgrade in like skill format. So what it is basically is the way that you can upgrade your characters like after gaining experience. So if you fight wild battles and gain a bunch of experience, what you actually gain are these little orbs or spheres, really. Duh. When you pull up the menu and go to the sphere grid, each character has this like giant perk tree of spheres, and you can, you know, select plus 200 maximum health, or plus 2 to defense, or plus 2 to attack, or you can learn new abilities in the sphere grid. So the more that you grind wild battles and gain little spheres, the more you can use them to upgrade each character. And it feels really satisfying to come through and like get worked by a boss, and then it's like, oh, I need to upgrade and like add some more spheres to Titus or Auron, you know, and then next thing you know, Titus has like a little bit more maximum health and defense, and then next thing you know, you're beating the boss. So I really enjoy the sphere grid. I'm glad they brought it back in FF7 Rebirth, and I hope it shows up again in future FF games. I don't want to ramble too much about Final Fantasy X, except when I look at it, after playing 7, I think this game is holding up just almost to the same level as 7. And I know for a lot of people, this is their favorite Final Fantasy game ever. And I can see how it could be, definitely. And if I played this as a kid, oh man, the nostalgia would be real, because I get nostalgia just looking at like Titus in the vibe of this early 2000s game. And I can see Final Fantasy X absolutely being in my top 5 Final Fantasies ever. You know, obviously I haven't played that many. So right now it's sitting right up there in the top 3, baby. Let me know what you think about Final Fantasy X. Is it your favorite Final Fantasy game? Where does it stack up on your list of favorite Final Fantasy games? Let me know in the comments. If you like the video, leave a like and subscribe. I appreciate that. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.